Hello everyone, and welcome to my Stamina Templar PvP build guide. In this video I want to talk about two setups that I'm really enjoying right now. And I honestly don't really know which one I prefer the most, because they both are really OP and really fun to play. So let's talk about both of them in this video. First setup I'm using here requires just one set, which is the Torque of the Last Alien King. It removes all the other set bonuses, but gives you nice damage mitigation, damage and sustain. And the thing with Templar is that it doesn't really need anything else. Maybe some penetration as well, but we'll try to cover it with our Mandas and weapon as much as we can. The main thing with this build is that you need to get right attributes and gear around it. I will write it down in the description and go over it quickly here. Maces we have Nirnhoned and Sharpened, one poison enchant and the other is Absorb Stamina, Staff is defending weapon damage, gear is 4 medium, 2 heavy, 1 light, all tri-stat enchants. 1 reinforced, 1 or 2 well-fitted, and the rest is impen. I just like turtle dodge, so 1 or 2 well-fitted is mandatory for me, but you can build however you like. Food is Bewitched Sugar Skulls, but you can also go for Jewels of Mithril if you feel like you need more recovery. Mandas is Laver. Torque really shines on Templar, and sadly I cannot say that about a lot of other classes. So if I can use Torque on Templar, would it actually be an OP, I'll take it. I always liked the simplicity of Stamplar, and it doesn't go simpler than this build, with it also being really strong. With this build you get more resources, because we can actually sustain max stats food, you get amazing survivability because of huge 15% damage reduction, and you also get great flat damage. So this build is super decent and very simple and easy to play. One thing it might lack compared to the other setup is probably penetration, and some major buffs, which you will get from Saint and Seducers on the second build. But in combat I can't really tell if I'm seeing much difference, because both of the builds are really good. Anyway, let's talk about the second setup. First set I'm using here is one of my new favorite sets in the game, Oakfather's Retribution. It gives us nice 4 lines of weapon and spell damage, and 5 piece gives us penetration and damage for every major and minor buff on our enemy. Usually people have 9 buffs active on them in PvP, and it's already at 3.5k penetration. Then it only goes higher. 10 buffs if they are using Healing Soul, 11 buffs with Saint and Seducer, 12 and more if they are using other sets with major buffs, specific class skills, or have buffs from their teammates. With minor buffs I think it's at least plus 100 weapon and spell damage, on top of around 400 weapon and spell damage, from 2 to 4 piece, and it goes higher as well. So this set is a great mix of damage and penetration, and it feels really strong in combat. I'm using it right now and I really like it. Second set I'm using on this setup is Wretched Vitality, because if we are going to use Laver Mandas and not Sharpened, I'm not really a big fan of sustain on this build, so we need Wretched. Balorgh and 1 piece Trainee as usual, and Saint and Seducers for nice damage major buffs. Other sets you could use are Stone's Favor, Etheric Lancer, Deadly, or Acuity instead of Oakfathers, and Rallying instead of Wretched. Comparing to Torque setup, this build is not as good in tankiness, although it's still very decent. Sustain is very similar, however I like it more on Torque build because we have more resources due to max stats food. And damage wise, this build gives us more penetration and buffs from Saint and Seducer, so it should be better on paper, but honestly I'm not 100% sure. I'd say they both are very similar in damage output. So feel free to try out both and decide what you prefer. Now let's move to the skills. They are the same for both setups. I'll start with the backbar. Here we have Honor the Dead or Healing Soul as our burst heal. Healing Soul is better on paper, but I think I just prefer good old Honor the Dead. It just feels much smoother and feels stronger as well for some reason. Ritual for heal over time and cleanse. You can also use Bubble instead of Ritual, or as an extra heal instead of some other skill if you need more healing. Vigor as our ally heal and minor resolve buff. Rune for heal over time and major resolve, Elisas for major breach, and Moral Guard for passive 5% damage mitigation and as an emergency ultimate. On the front bar we have Beam as our execute, used below 40% of enemies' HP, Power of the Light as our damage over time and burst damage skill. Here you can also use Ulfshield's Contingency or Solar Barrage, but for me it feels like Power of the Light is the clear winner. Jabs as our main spammable and also our source of Vitality and Sorcery. So if you are starting your combo not with jabs, be sure to pre-buff them for damage. Camo Hunter for crit and damage buffs, Toppling Charge as our stun, Gap Closer and damage mitigation skill. And Sweep is our super cheap ultimate, which we can basically spam whenever it's ready. Main change compared to skill setup on my older videos is Toppling Charge instead of Javelin. I prefer Toppling Charge playstyle more at the moment, because it looks cool, it's a good Gap Closer, it gives you major protection after activating it, which is super useful, and on Torque build I cannot sustain Javelin with max stats Foot and Lavarmandus, and since Toppling Charge is for Magicka, I can sustain it just fine. Other skills you can use on Templar are Race Against Time if you need to see immunity and minor force, and Dawnbreaker or Dual Wield Ultimate instead of Sweep if you'd like. And that's it about the skills. Lastly, I want to talk about rotation. First, you pre-buff. You put Rune, press Vigor, pre-buff Jabs before combo to get major brutality and sorcery buffs. Then you apply LSS and Power of the Light on the enemy. Then you Toppling Charge at them, hit your ultimate, and if they're at 40% or below HP, you beam, and if they aren't, you do couple jabs until they are, and then you beam. Ritual you can also put on the ground if you think this fight will take more time. If you are using Power of the Light, don't forget that itself it doesn't do much damage, but instead it deals burst damage at the end, that you are building from your other skills during Power of the Light duration. Overall, both of these setups feel really nice and they are super easy and fun to play. And Templar is just one of my favorite classes, so I just enjoy playing it. Once again, feel free to try out different sets, skills and have fun. Thank you all for watching, and goodbye.